Recording has been started, and then showing a screen, and then we can say trading therapy, let's go.
Right, okay, after those technical issues, we're actually started. This is meant to be a follow-up to the first session, which is about the trading therapy thing. My first talk was perhaps a bit overly long and underprepared, so we didn't quite cover all the bases we wanted to. So we thought it would be a good idea to do another presentation, this time just to go over what we've discussed a bit more and also talk about the practical aspects of it. And we're going to bring in Frank and Clint, who are going to talk about their experiences with trading psychology. Excuse me. So to start with, I'm just going to skim through what I talked about last time, because it was a few weeks back, just to remind people and remind myself, actually. So I call this concept trading therapy, for want of a better phrase. And I was just talking about how, in general, there's two ways you can approach a therapeutic process. One is sort of positive suggestions. And this includes things like affirmations, which people are probably most familiar with, subliminal CDs, hypnosis recordings, and guided meditations and things. Then there's more the therapy side, which is using things like hypnotherapy, emotional freedom technique, that's tapping, neuro-linguistic programming, regression hypnotherapy, and inner child work. So stuff which is more actually to do dealing with emotions and things like that. And also that if you start doing affirmations, you sometimes find that actually uncovers actual issues. So sometimes the first process can lead into the second. Right, and second thing I talked about was how important psychology is, and it's the most important aspect of trading. I hope you all believe that now. It's made a complete difference to my trading. It's turned me from a break-even trader to a profitable trader. It's all down to psychology and nothing else. Okay, so I also then briefly talked about how important it is that you have a strategy which suits your personality. I was trading a strategy which didn't suit my personality before, and it just drove me around the bend, incredibly stressful. In fact, I had to give up trading for several weeks just because it was so bad. But as a result of that process, I stepped back and said, no, I've got to actually design something which suits myself. And so that's what I did with this bespoke trading idea. So that's another very important aspect. And then the third aspect, which is a bit I actually wanted to talk about in more detail today, this is the process for finding out what issues are swaying you in your trading process. Okay, and this is a practical thing which I'm trying to get to point of teaching. Now I say here it's approaching from the therapy side. I think having written these notes, I probably revised this slightly, in that you can approach it from both sides. What I mean by that is when you dealing with emotions, you can, rather than necessarily do a therapeutic tool, you can actually use affirmations or something to work on it, but we probably best done with both. But when I start talking about the practicalities, then we can explore that a bit more. And so positive suggestions as a backup, that's using affirmations to support you in this process. Right, now there are the stage one of the process is this process. It's a state of being hyper aware of what's going on inside you as you trade. And as I think I say in the next point, as a short-term trader, I get many more opportunities to experience this through my trading session than someone who's trading once a day. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you become short-term traders just for this process, but you know, it's because short-term trading is more emotional in that respect. Basically, the way it works is when you're trading, every time you notice any feelings at all to do with the trading process, then you step back, you name them, and it says here if you don't have time, then resolve them, or either resolve them or use mindfulness. I'd say there's another side to this also, which is actually to feel them and acknowledge them, which is the opposite of stepping back, of course. So I mean, there may be a contradiction there, but what I mean by this is you feel something, you experience something, firstly go into it, acknowledge it, really feel it, and once you have really experienced it, and you could even do something like say, yes, I'm feeling a fear here that my position is underwater and I'm going to get stopped out for the full loss, you know, and just so feel it, acknowledge it, you know, because the thing is, there's a golden rule in therapy: if you don't acknowledge stuff, it doesn't get resolved, or you can't move on. So first, I'd say go into it, experience it, acknowledge it, and name it, and then you've then got then you can perhaps step back and so I should obviously edit this. And you can either resolve it if you've got time to do that, or if you're in the middle of making a decision, then what I'd use what I call mindfulness, which is basically stepping back and saying, oh yes, this is this feeling of fear of a loser here. You know, I've seen that before. I mean, that's just, you know, one of my patterns. And by stepping back and naming it like that, that gives you the chance to disassociate yourself from it. Okay, the resolving side of it, this, as I said, the first thing is really to feel it. And I think, you know, however you're resolving it, or even if you're not trying to resolve it, you've got to sort of experience and feel it, because otherwise it just never gets acknowledged, and you know, never goes away, never gives it a chance to go away. My number one go-to tool for stuff like this is emotional freedom technique, which I talked about in my conference speech, and I'll give you some brief pointers as to how to get started on that. You can also use the fast phobia technique, which is again something I talked about in my conference speech. Well, I've talked about in the thread, and inner child work is another way of doing it, and Frank's going to talk about that, his experience with that. So those are the main processes. This was just about how once you start doing this, you can become quite emotional as you're exploring all this stuff, and quite often it's old feelings. What I'm going to do now is just end that slideshow. I want to show you this one. Where are we? Here we are. This is the Emotional Freedom Technique website. The URL is very simple. It's emofree.com. Okay. Now this process is evolving over time. This is set up by this chap called Gary Craig. He's there. It seems fairly altruistic. The whole course is basically all free. You can be certified as a therapist if you want, something I'm considering. He's evolved gradually from the tapping, which is the stuff I'm going to show you down here, through to something which is called the optimal EFT, which it's much more spiritual healing based, and it may well not be many people's cup of tea. I'm just starting to explore it now. I find this sort of stuff interesting. If it's a bit too airy-fairy for you, then that's fine. What I recommend you get started with the gold standard thing. So what you need to do is click on, it's rather tucked away now. You click on the little American flag there, and this is the entire gold standard tapping course here. And there's all these different hierarchies, different folders here. It's well worth, if you get it all interested in this, go through the entire course. There's loads of content, there's loads of videos, everything there. But just to get started, if you go to part 1 and how to do the EFT tapping basics, this is the basic recipe. So there is talks you all about through how to do it. Some of you may remember this slide, which is the tapping points. And these all should be one of your hands as well. Yes, the karate chop there, and then these tapping points. I can't really demonstrate it to you, but there is a little video here at the end. If you go all the way down, you can watch a video which takes you to YouTube, and there's Gary who will take you through. It's a 3-minute thing, will show you how to do the tapping. So I thoroughly recommend that, and that is probably, if you're going to use one method, I would say use EFT as a great way of resolving stuff. Now, what I would say is sometimes if you, just take some examples, you may just get stopped out and have a loss, and so you're feeling crappy about that. You know, that may not be to do with any underlying issues. It may just be you've had a loss and, you know, you feel bad about it. So, you know, don't think it's always going to be deep therapy. It's just, but what you can do is, you know, you've had a loss, rather than shying away from it, you actually experience it, acknowledge it. Yes, I've had a loss there, that hurt, I'm down this much on the week now, you know, got to make that back and things. Take time to acknowledge the feelings, feel what it feels like. So once you've done that, then you could do a round of tapping, and you can that will actually alleviate the pain and even dissolve it altogether. So that is how I deal with this process. And I found when I first started off, almost every decision point, there was a lot of emotional content to do with it. There's fear of missing out and all sorts of pressures about fear of taking a trade, fear of losing, all this kind of thing. Want to take money off too early. So it was quite astonishing how much emotion there was. Then within a few weeks, that's changed completely to the point where this week I've only twice had to acknowledge anything at all in my training. It's become so much more mechanical and detached. It's quite extraordinary. I was saying to someone the other day, when I think back to compare how I am now to how I used to be, it's just like two different people in terms of how I think about trading, and also in terms of the results actually. I'll just give you a little example today. I happen to have I was just going to post somewhere. This is a trade I did today. In days gone by, I would have tightened up really quickly on here. I would have been stopped out here on this low, but I followed my rules and happened to get luck out and get my TP there. I was sitting in that trade for more than 2 hours, which I would never have done in the past. I just wouldn't have had the patience. It's just little stuff like that which makes the difference in terms of your P&L, I find. So that's a potted history of how I do this. But what I'm going to do now is hand it over to, we'll see if other people want to come in. I don't know whether, Frank, you want to take the screen and talk a bit, or Clint, you want to talk? But that's more or less what I was going to say on the subject.
Perfect. Clint, would you like to start taking over? Possibly we can leave the screen as well with you, Adam, I think, because you had some really recent issue you would like to share with us. So I think maybe we go to that one first, and then I'll start with some of the background of the childhood thing later on. Does it make sense?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Great. Okay. Go ahead, Clint.
It's kind of related to with Adam. Hi, Clint. I'm here. I've been trading for about 3 years, and started off, lost an account. Luckily found Walter Peters, which was good, and it actually got me trading right. I went through the cycle of doom, not very much because I found Walter Peters, but then I've kind of got onto the whole philosophy thing and the whole psychology of trading, and tried to get into that, and it's opened my eyes about my whole life, really. And outside of life, my world has changed for the more positive, which is fantastic. Because the conference in London really opened my eyes on how things can change and how people can change and everything. But I'm trying to put that into context with my trading. And I think, when I catch myself talking negative about anything outside of trading, I can catch myself quite quickly, turn it around, and make it into a more positive aspect. But when it comes to my trading, I kind of I can't catch my emotions properly. I'm not quite sure what emotion I'm feeling at the time, and it's normally after the fact that I kind of realize, okay, well, I jumped in on that, or this was a revenge trade, or I get so frustrated that it actually stops me from trading. An example on Tuesday, where I was just a losing day, and I did something silly and accidentally closed the trade and got frustrated. And I got so frustrated at the fact that I had to step away for a while and then came back, and there was a perfect setup, and I was too frustrated, aggravated, and fear of doing it again that I actually didn't take a perfectly good winning trade. Now, as I said, I didn't know where to start with the Adams thing. I read about it the other day. I had a look at it up the video, and I found it fascinating as how to step back, analyze yourself with your feelings. I just have a few questions. How do you identify your feelings when you're in the moment, Adam?
Okay, good question, Clint. It's one of these things. I mean, you've said that you are now really good at spotting stuff when it happens in everyday life.
Yeah.
You've got to get to the point where you can spot this as it happens in trading as well. And I think I'm just guessing from what you said. Maybe you're finding that the trading so engrossing that you don't allow yourself the time and space to feel what you're feeling. So what I actually did when I started this process, I made the trading psychology my #1 priority. I didn't care about the pips at all. It was just about the trading psychology. And what that meant was I would quite happily miss out on a setup if I felt there was something I was feeling which I needed to explore and acknowledge. You know, I know that may, you know, especially with short-term trading, you only got a matter of moments sometimes to make a decision and things. You know, so it may fly in the face of that, but I strongly believe that the psychology bit's more important than the trading bit to start with. And once you get the psychology sorted, then you can, you know, worry about split-second decisions and things. So I mean, you could do something as simple as before you make any decision. I don't know whether you meditate at all, but that might be something, you know, it's just, or just close your eyes, go within and say, how am I feeling? You just sit there for 30 seconds or a minute and say, you know, what am I actually feeling? And if you feel anything, go towards it. Sit in it and say, well, what is this feeling? So that's what I would suggest. Okay, I'm going to hand the mic back to you now.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. That's a good one. I also think as well as if I battle with my live trading when it comes to finding my feelings, well, I'm definitely going to take that on board, what you said, because I found a little system and I did it on the 4-hour. I got too bored. I need to go a little bit lower, so I went to the 15-minute, and in demo, back testing worked like a charm. In demo, worked like a charm, and as soon as I went to my little live account, it's I've really been battling. I see all the setups, but the psychology is taken over, and it's the fear of losing, and I'm worried too much about my financial gains and losses instead of the actual process. So I need to work on that. But yes, I definitely will. So if I feel an emotion as I'm about to trade, like I did on Tuesday, where I just felt fear that I was going to get another loss, which I know is part of the game. But I mean, then I just have to sit back and take it all in, feel it, sit in it, and then acknowledge it, and then maybe tap it away and not do anything with the trade. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, what I would, as I said, in order to I prioritize the psychology bit of it to start with.
Yeah. Okay.
Because otherwise you get this conflict as, oh, I want to sort out the psychology, but I want to put the trade on, you know, and that's just going to cause extra stress, and you're trying to avoid stress in this. So what I would probably suggest is, firstly, if you're worried at all about the financial side of it, then just knock the size right down. I mean, when I started doing this, I was trading minimum size, so 0.01 lots. You know, so there was a financial accountability to it, but it was so marginal that, you know, even if I had 10 losers in a row, it wasn't going to make any difference. You know, it's up to you. You maybe decide how you want to do that, but you know, while you're going through this process, you don't necessarily want to be trading big size.
Yeah.
So that also means that, you know, if you decide you're going to sit in this emotion and tap it away rather than take the trade, it's not going to be no biggie either way, basically.
Right.
But you're right. Basically, you know, for example, you've got a setup and you've got a fear of not wanting to have another loser, whatever it is. You notice you've got a feeling of some kind, so you sort of step back. I close my eyes, go inside, say, what is this feeling? And just sit in it until you know, or until you at least sort of really felt it fully. Yeah. And then you may recognize it and say, oh yes, this is a fear of not wanting another loser. Because the point I was going to say when you were talking was, I find that if I've got some emotions going on, I can't make an objective, clean decision. And for that reason, I'm more and more coming to the conclusion that if I'm not in that clean state of mind, then I don't want to take the trade or don't want to do anything, because I know the decision is going to be biased.
Right.
But that's, you know, so that's a relatively recent development. But I would go so far to say that, you know, if I'm not feeling emotionally balanced, then I wouldn't actually do the trade. But that's up to you, maybe. But
yeah, that sounds.
Sorry, I was just going to say what you described as sitting in it, naming and acknowledging it, and then, you know, tapping it away. Is exactly what we're talking about.
Okay. Now, also, yesterday I had a fantastic day. It was a great day. 90% of my trades were on the winners. I came back this morning all confident and gung ho, and immediately took two bad trades, which again, is there on the plus side, the overconfidence, is that a thing that you should actually sit down and try and feel as well? Adam.
Yes, that is actually one of. I really recognize what you're saying. I found when I was trading before I did all this, that if I struggled actually and eventually made enough pips, so I thought, right, I'm going to start increasing my size now. The next week, almost invariably, was a loser, because somehow once I'd made a certain number of pips, yeah, I can do this now. I'm a trading god, and all profits bow down before, all that kind of stuff, and inevitably you fall flat in your face. All I can say is that for me, the real thing is assessing objectively the risk of whether it's a good trade to take or not. And I'm quite cautious in what I tend to only take the really best setups because I know that that's where my edge is. And if anything, I think I generally err on the other side, is that I only take a few trades a week anyway. So, I mean, you said you had 90% of yours will win. Yours you do trading more frequently than me. It's a certain headspace you get into where you actually are just objectively assessing the risks without worrying too much either way, or whether you trade or whether you don't. And that's where you're trying to get to. And it's only once you've been in it and recognize it, then you know when you're not in it, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so that's what I would say. I mean, you could argue that you took two. The question is, were those reasonably good enough trades? And if they were, then fair enough, you had two losers. It could be that those trades were fine. Only you can say, really.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, I'm actually quite good at now, like through the practice that I've had in the back testing, that I only actually disciplined enough to actually only take good trade setups, which is great. So I know when I have a loser, it's my system is about 50 to 60%. So I know that 40 to 50% is going to be on the other side of things. But it's just I think maybe a meditation session before trading, just to see if there is any issues, might bring up some issues, or settle me down, so I actually think objectively before I trade.
If I can hook on this one, that's exactly what I'm doing as well. The meditation, at least every other day, I'm doing that as of now. That's what's helping me, and especially, as we said, after like this 90% winning streak, whatsoever you call it, I usually don't trade the next day, or even for a couple of days as well. It's happening to me that I'm not really actively on the markets as well, just like saying, okay, I need to distract myself first. I need to kind of get rid of that positive emotions first in order to kind of become more balanced. That's the good thing. But I think Adam was giving you some great examples as well, a great idea, great input on how you can, as you said, like really live these emotions, and by this then overcome them, the negative and the extreme positive ones, I would say. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this inner childhood thing, and that's the story of my past. I only recently got to learn my inner self, young boy, and was embracing him with full peacefulness. And that's what brought me also to a different state, where I can feel now, okay, I'm not having these of course there are still issues within each and every one, I think, but a few of these very much past young childhood experiences, I'm talking from the age of, say, 3 to 10 or 12 possibly, the time I can really remember very well. There were like a few things I was doing through hypnosis and meditation, which I found out which were actually painful moments. But after that, that hypnosis was a guided hypnosis session for about lasting 45 minutes. I felt much lighter, and then, as I'm the German way, I tried the same thing 2 days after, and then I didn't have the same emotions. I only had positive emotions, which then was my own happy affirmation, or rather confirmation, saying that everything was so far kind of resolved, which is a great feeling, and great to kind of get rid of that. So a bit of the, as Adam calls it, a bit of the basket or the backpack is kind of, or not in a bit, kind of most of it is kind of emptied now, and I feel much lighter as well that way now, and can have a trading environment, trading atmosphere which is more relaxed in general already due to that. So that's something very important, and I've recently started also checking up some other things, some other English-speaking meditations. I was sharing some stuff as well with you guys. It's that's like you choose to be happy or normal, which is what I posted in the group as well. Like just the abbreviation of that book from that same guy and did the meditation with. But this one is just like, it's just like, as I said, it's an abbreviation of the entire story on how you choose your everyday life to be with. And just a little thing happened yesterday. I've had a friend over, and she was doing two things. She's doing kinesiology as well herself, and she was saying, when I asked her, like, how does it really work? Does that work? Do I only need to believe in it, or is it really something what you can see or feel? And she was doing this little experiment. She asked me to hold out my hand, and she asked me to just say yes. And then when I said yes, she tried to pull or push down my arm, touching my hand from above, and it was like difficult for her to push down my hand. And then she said, Frank, now you say no, which I did. And then right after, it was much easier for her to use pressure to press my arm down to the downside. So just by these little things of like affirming ourselves, positive emotions or negative emotions, we can get to a different stage in trading and in our basic general mindset. And just by these little things as well, the affirmations we've heard by Alex, and of course the tapping, which I haven't really started doing much, but I think these are like these little things, and as Adam, you were saying or repeating as well, if you believe in it or not, it just doesn't. It doesn't cause any harm. It doesn't cause any harm for us. So that's why I'm rather choosing these kind of things and happily doing that. And I'm really feeling as well. As much as my girlfriend, who starts to meditate as well, and she even asks me sometimes for some new input, some other stuff, some other stories to listen to before she's falling asleep at nighttime. So like there is a certain impact which we know. And the good thing is as well, like once you start with it, I think you kind of, in a way, crave a little bit, or have these cravings for more of it. And that's what I really enjoy when doing it, because I can feel that's beneficial. And the utmost perfection would be, of course, Adam, as you were saying as well beforehand, to get this full state of mind, a full peace of mind, where you can say, I make a decision. If it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I make a decision because I see something in the charts. I make a decision because I observe something. And when you're in this state of mind, then you have a much higher chance of course, of luck as well in a way, but much higher chance of winning or making money with trading. We still have a couple of minutes left, I think, and the question is, like, Clint, you had some other questions, because you had some very interesting questions asked already. Is there anything else you have what you would like to talk?
Not really. As far as questions with the emotions go, I have some homework to do, that's for sure. I just wanted to say, though, that with all the knowledge that I've read with all the people from this group, it has actually changed my life a lot. With the affirmations I do every morning, the pictures in my head, the meditation. I do meditate, but I might try it actually right before I trade. It really has been a very positive thing, and I'm really thankful that I've met everybody. That's me.
Likewise, I keep emphasizing it as well, as much as Adam, also, who is becoming a great friend of mine every day in the morning call, as much as you are, Clint. So that's really good fun. Thanks. on that side. And just like by exchanging our ideas on a very, and I find that a very professional level, that's already like a very great step for us as well, which keeps me going as well, because I see that also, like, my problems are the same problems in a way as yours, and that's what helps. What's helping each other a lot. Now I want to ask a little question, Fedwin. You've been kind of fairly recently involved with trading, and I would like to ask you as well if you have any questions. Let me unmute you, And oh, you're self-muted. Fedwin, you have anything you would like to talk about as well? Because in our little Skype calls, you always have also great stuff going. Fedwin, you gotta unmute yourself first if you would like to say something. Okay. Caroline saying goodbye. I have to go for a phone call. I appreciate it. Yeah, great, Caroline. Fedwin, because we are running a bit out of time. Can't unmute. Hold on. Self-muted.
Oh, all right. No, yeah.
Hey.
All right. Hi. Yeah, it's a great sharing. I think I experienced the same thing also. Like there was this point of time where I feel like you know, like I risk a lot and I earn a lot. Then I feel a little bit more confident, like a little bit more cocky. Then I try to trade even more. Then it cost me a great loss. So I kind of have the same experience like the sharing just now, what you have shared just now. So it really hits me hard when you share on that thing just now. So yeah, that's a good sharing.
All right, hello. Great. It's good to hear. Adam, you have something more you would like to add up as well to make it a round session? I think we talked about a huge amount of interesting things today, so that's very, very great.
I don't have anything particular to add. I mean, I think I'm trying to make this whole process fairly simple because there's not much to it really. It's just basically just being aware of it, of your feelings, acknowledging them and feeling them as you trade, and then realizing that that is the bit that stands between you and actual profitability. And it's a very practical process that you need to get into. It's not something that's theoretical or abstract. It's something that will only make sense to you once you start doing it. And I said the way I did it for me was actually made it my #1 priority in my trading. And because it is the single most important aspect of trading. So it's just a question of practice, practice, practice. I mean, I don't know whether we might be a good idea to set up a room where we can just sort of offer feedback on this, or chat about it, or ask questions, or maybe do something like that. But it's just a question of knuckling down, feeling those feelings, and then I'd recommend learning EFT myself. But yeah.
Great stuff. Fully agree. Possibly what we can do, we have our Skype group as well, and Fedwin, let's see if we can add you as well to that one. So the Skype group, talk about FX, and well, we can share stuff over there. Else, of course, Fedwin, we can talk as we do anyways on a regular basis over Skype ourselves, and then doing it that way. Perfect. I really enjoyed again today, Adam, because it's always great when you're sharing your professional insights, and yeah, as you said, by experiencing it and just trying it out and getting pro at that, I think we have a great chance of getting us to a different level, anyways. Because all of us who are at least here for now are definitely on the way to kind of being open to ourselves. And the more open we are with ourselves and our feelings, the more we are kind of acknowledging them as well. And then by acknowledging them, we can feel them, as Adam was saying as well, and then also say getting rid of unwanted nonsense and waste in our minds. So that's what I would like to say in this case. Great. So if nothing else, yeah, it was a very fruitful session for us, I think. I'm happy that we got this one recorded, and yeah, we keep it in our mind and get going. I put the link as well here on the chat box, www.emofree.com. That's the one, and it's having it on as well, still on the charts on the screen. So great. Hey guys, again, thanks a lot for your participation and for your valuable information, Adam and Clint, for the practical ideas, because of course these are the things as well which are in my mind every now and then, and it's always good to find now any really practical approach to that to get rid of it, I think.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for
all right.
Thanks, Frank. Have a good. Cheers, Adam. Have a good. Cheers, Adam.
Bye. Bye.